In our last video, we saw how we can set up a basic Flask application. We also saw how we can create routes and how we can map those routes with our controller functions. And we also saw how we can install SQLAlchemy, how to perform migrations, how to create a model, which will be then mapped with the table, which is residing in our database. Now, in this video, we will see a very basic CRUD operation or CRUD functionality, how we can create a row in the database. And we will also see different types of request methods that Flask supports. So let's get started. So we created this endpoint previously, this get users, which returned a simple message like hello world. So you can see in this endpoint, we are also using a request object, which has a method called post. So there's an attribute on this object, which is method, and we are performing a condition. We are doing a condition check whether this method is equal to post. Now, in Flask, this request object holds different type of attributes, but this method specifically contains the request type. Now, a bit about request types in Flask. So in HTTP, we have different types of request types. So I will just write here, first request type will be post, and then we have a get. Oops. Then we have a put call that we can use. We also have delete, and we also have like options. Options, we will only stick to the 4 basic request types here. So the post, generally when we are sending any information from client to server, we tend to use post. There is no hard and fast rule here. You can use any other request type as well, for example put, but the convention or the standard is to use post for this. So we have these different type of request types which follow the standard. So for example, when you are fetching any information from the server, our example will be get users. So you are fetching something. In our case, it was a simple message. So we used a get call here, you can see. Similarly, if you're modifying any resource, let's suppose if you're modifying any row in the database, or you're modifying any information or multiple informations in different tables, and you have a single controller function for that. Okay, so for instance, showing in detail how we'll be writing a put call, but let's suppose instead of this get users, we had update user, and in that update user, we were updating profile information, but after updating a user information, we were also updating some other necessary information in different tables. Okay, so we could have used put call there. Now, then lastly, we have a delete call. So in delete, as the name suggests, we will be deleting any resource. So in our case, or here, it will be deleting a row. Okay. So similarly, these are the request types we will be using in our demonstration, upcoming demonstrations. I'll be just putting it here. Now I will be creating a simple control function which will create a row or data in a user table. Now let me copy paste this, and I will modify this as add row, add user. And here I will modify the route definition to add user, path to add user. And here I will just simply change the request type. So just one more thing to add here, you can see we are checking the condition. So this condition check is not needed because we are only sending one request type here. If in case we were sending multiple request types, then we had to check this. So let's remove this condition. So whatever happens, we will be writing now. So now you can see I am performing a request.getJSON. So what this does is whatever data that we send in the payload, that will be received by this getJSON, and then it will then put the data in this data variable, and this data variable will be nothing but a dictionary. Okay, so we can try printing it, but before that we have to use a tool for our API testing. So I will quickly open the Postman. So here in my Postman, I have an empty collection here. I will just name it. I will name it as Python tutorial. And here I will be creating all the requests. So I will go here and add a request. And in our case, it's a post call. So I will name it as post. And then I will add localhost and the port on whichever application is running. So it's a 5000. And I have to add user. If I hit this, you will see immediately it's returning add user is not found, and that is because I have not restarted the server. Let me restart the server. Yeah, so now it's working. So you can see immediately after sending it, it's giving us one error saying unsupported media type. And that is because we are handling a JSON, a body here, and it's not able to interpret this body because we are not sending anything. And it must be sending something else which it is not able to handle. So let's go ahead and create one test JSON just to test things out. So I will write it name and I will write Alice. So this will be our test user. I will click on the beautify and send it. You can see immediately it has responded to this data that we sent, and it is proper. It's able to return a proper status code here, which is 200. Now we will be modifying this endpoint further. We want to add this information into our database. So if we go into our database, which is here, our schema has email, password, and two grid add and update add columns and a status column. This information from our request body, and then we will be creating a similar row into our database. So we'll go back to our endpoint, and here, just before performing any operation, we will simply print this data here just to debug it or test it, like what kind of data we are getting. And after that, we will import our model. And we will import our model from the models that we have defined, and I will say users and user. Yeah, this is user. Okay, now I will call this endpoint again to test the data. You can see it's printing the Alice, which is a dictionary. That means we have to modify the data that we are sending slightly, or I would say we have to add more keys. So I will add age. Do we have age? Let me open one more window here just to keep track of things. So we don't have age, we have email. Just add email. I would say alice123@gmail.com, any test email. There are no constraints at the moment, so you can send out any data into these columns. And then we'll send the password. Just keep it 1, 2, 3. Then the created at. Okay, so we have a created at and a read at, which are which are basically date type they support, and the status. So let's leave the created at and updated at columns, and we will only add the status, which is an integer. And just beautify this and test it again. Just make the call, and you can see the dictionary has been updated. Now this is a dictionary. Now if you're not familiar with the basic data structures like dictionary, how to modify them, I will be showing them in a separate video in near future when I will be making them. But for now, just remember this. To modify dictionary, there are a couple of ways. One way is to use the indexing. So you click the dictionary and then you add a new key. Okay, you name the key which you want to add, and in our case will be created at. And then similarly, you can add updated at status as well. Okay, now go ahead and hit this again just to confirm our data structure. Okay, so you can see it has added the data and the D types as well. Okay, now we'll be creating a row in our table. So we'll be using the functionality which is present on our models. So this is what ORM gives us. So I will be using my user model, and I will populate these fields. You can see I got the type hint. So on my model, I already have the email, password, and these fields present. Okay, I will simply update them, and it will give me a user object because it's a class. Now I have to add this to the database. So we have an object created in our application, which is a DB object, and this DB object has an attribute which is called session, and this session has an attribute or method, I would say, which is add. And in this add, it takes a parameter which is an SQLAlchemy object. So we will pass it the user object, and after passing it, we will simply say db.session.commit. And what this commit does is it simply commits all the changes to the database. So here there are a couple of points which are important. We didn't perform any query, any raw query. We didn't write any SQL query here. That is because we are leveraging the ORM functionality, the SQLAlchemy functionality. We are only calling this add method, and this add method internally is executing queries on behalf of that. So a developer doesn't have to remember the complexities of a query. He simply have to call this method, and that query that create this into this table with the values will be automatically done for him. Now let's go ahead and call this just to see if it works. Let's see. Okay, so seems like it didn't work. Let's see what is the okay. So what it's complaining about the datetime that we have given it. So it's not able to support this type of datetime. So what we can do is we will simply, there's one more easy way of doing it. Just import the datetime. Okay. So instead of doing it this way, we will use one more approach. I will say UTC. I will say now UTC has been depreciated. I will import time zone. Just for testing, we will simply send it the datetime that we currently have and send it to this as well. Let's test this one. Okay, this worked. So we have successfully inserted a row in our database. So the previous error was complaining about the datetime format that we were sending. So if I just copy and undo things, just to show you, yeah, this one. So this, it was complaining about this format. It was not able to support this format, this kind of format in the database. That's why it was complaining and giving us the error. So this one, it's able to support. So here, we were able to create a row. If I call this again, okay, now it's giving us error. Okay, let's do this. If I call this again, it will insert another row. Now if we go into our database, here is the refresh. I perform a refresh, you can see we have 2 of the rows. I make one more call and we will have one more row created. Okay, so this way we can make a post call which will create a database row in our tables, and we have used ORM functionality that is present on the Flask SQLAlchemy library. Now in our next video we will see how we can modify this table data, this row data, using a put call, and then how we can leverage additional request methods that we have, like put and delete. Thank you.